Hey there, Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here. Welcome to day 56 of our BU 365-day challenge to do one thing every day that improves us in some way, shape, or form. Now, before we get started on today's emotional lessons learned, and I'll share about a dozen that I just thought about last night, some lessons that I've learned with respect to the area of emotions, that segment of my life, over, the not too recent past. And I just knocked off a bunch. I'm sure I could think of dozens and dozens of things, especially since the COVID pandemic, because I've learned a lot of lessons during that with respect to emotions and how we deal with them. But I didn't even think of that until right now as I'm talking. So yesterday I did do a little work on my heart wall. I went online, I found the table of emotions from Dr. Bradley Nelson, and I went through and I removed abandonment, betrayal, and sadness from my heart wall. Now, that's all that my subconscious would let me do. And so I asked, do I still have a heart wall? Absolutely, positively. Will I continue to work on this now that I've been reminded of this tool that I totally, forgot about since probably the early 2000 teens, and haven't used it since then. And that's what I like about this challenge, is it reminds me of tools and things and lessons and things that I've learned in the past that I used and worked on me, but over time as our lives change, we just fall out of practice, and it's good to be reminded of them and how powerful they are. Because obviously over the last decade I have added to my heart wall, and it's time to knock it down again. And I'm gonna have to do it, it looks like, maybe 2 or 3 emotions at a time to work my way through not having a heart wall anymore. So curious if you did that exercise, if you looked that up, if you have ever tried that before, you could share in the comments below. Today, let's hop into our lessons learned. Now, normally when you think of lessons learned, and I probably got this from my time in corporate America, when I did a lot of projects and managed a lot of projects. And with each project, I would try to learn what worked during the project, what didn't work during the project, and I captured those in a little notebook. And I kept a notebook of lessons learned from different projects so that I would be more effective, the team would be more effective, so we'd get better results the next time we had a project. What worked, what didn't, what people and what skills people brought to the table, and that was very, very powerful in future projects. And my projects tended to get better and better and better results over time because we were more effective, I was more effective, and we learned a lot of what to do and not to do on any given project moving forward. So we can apply that same thinking to every area and aspect of our life. I like to treat myself like my own science experiment. We really are all scientists, and our greatest experiment will always be us and figuring out what works for us, what makes us tick, what makes us feel good. Because overall, the overarching message, if you get nothing else out of this whole segment, is our purpose and our job is to feel good. And if we always, in every situation, just try to feel a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, we'll always be making progress and moving in the direction we want to move. So how do we conduct a life lesson, I guess I don't even know what I'd call it, a life lesson exercise? How do we capture that? Well, what I personally do is I have a notebook, and I ripped a page out of it for today's life lessons, or not life lessons, emotional lessons learned. And I keep all of my lessons learned in one notebook because I use that for information and content to share with other people, or in coaching or consulting. When I see a pattern of behavior or something going on that I've also experienced, I can use that as a lesson that I learned to help show other people that maybe they're following a similar pattern of activities, events, and choices. So how do we do that? Well, first we identify the emotion that is our project, right? Our understanding ourselves and our emotions is a project in and of itself. We identify what that is. I just say what it is, the emotion in my book, and I guess I should have brought it with me, but I didn't. But I put the emotion or the thing or the project or the name of something to trigger in my memory what I'm talking about, what I'm referring to. Then I document, I write down the things that went well, the things that didn't go well, and the successes we had, what worked, what didn't work, and then the lessons that I learned from that. Hey, with so-and-so, you need to approach it from a very methodical, step-by-step standpoint in order to get the results that we want. But with another person, I can just give them the outcome that we want and then let them run with it, because they're a creative, good problem solver, and I can just give them a challenge and they'll go with it. But each of us are different. Each of us need different things in order to solve problems, change things, deal with our emotions, etc. So then we want to find a place to store, or we can analyze, and we can look at the situation, and we can say, okay, again, it's our analysis of our emotions, what feels good to us, what doesn't feel good to us. With respect to emotions, I usually gauge everything as feels good, doesn't feel good. If it feels good, I do more of it. If it doesn't feel good, I stop doing it. I do less of it. I find ways to not let it happen in my life again. And that's the biggest lesson that I learned from every emotional engagement. How did I respond? Did I like the way I respond, or did it make me feel bad? If I yell at someone, which happens sometimes these days, but not as often as it did when I was younger. If I lose my temper, or I get angry, or I yell at something, or I feel someone, or I feel frustrated, I want to look at that experience and say, okay, what triggered that? What could I do differently, and what would I like to do differently next time, so that I learn from that? And then finally, I want to find a place to store those. I keep a notebook. You can do whatever works for you. Maybe there's probably an app for it, right? There's probably for a lessons learned app online. I did not look because our internet was out yesterday. I'm hoping it's working today. I haven't checked it yet. But then we want to put that information somewhere where we can actually retrieve it, so that, like my heart wall, I don't have to go back over and over and over again, removing the same emotions, because I keep adding them back to my heart wall or my experiences. So our action item today is going to be just to share one emotional lesson that you've learned in your lifetime. Doesn't even have to be during the challenge, just one emotional lesson that you've learned, because we can learn from one another. One of the biggest lessons I've learned about life is that one of the best ways to learn something is to not necessarily have to experience everything ourselves, especially the bad things. We don't want to experience all of the negative things, or things that make us feel bad by ourselves. If we can save ourselves some of that trauma and drama, why would we not? It's why I watch movies on topics that I'm a little bit afraid of, because then I can learn the lessons that I don't want to ever experience, and never have to actually personally experience them. So let me share a couple of my emotional lessons learned. Got them written down on a piece of paper, so I need my magnifying glass. And they're in no particular order. I just knocked them off last night before I went to bed. And they're written in the I, because they're my lessons learned. So you can choose if you want to write them in the third person or not. But since it's something personal to me, I use I, right? So if I don't deal with an emotion, it will appear or pop up again. And I mean again and again and again and again and again for me if I don't deal with it. Only I can deal with my emotions. Nobody else can deal with my emotions for me. Only I can choose what is the best way to handle and deal with my emotions. My emotions are my responsibility. Everybody else's emotions are their responsibility. I can't make anybody on the planet feel differently just because I want them, or think or believe they should feel differently. That includes our children. Emotions come and go, sometimes as randomly as the weather. That is true. Sometimes I'll be doing something that has nothing to do with another thing, and it'll pop into my head, and I'll all of a sudden feel sad or happy or bad and not know why. Well, it's just because I had a passing thought of something that reminded me of something else. All emotions are here to show me something, either to let it go, resolve the emotion, choose a different response to the emotion, or reinforce a feeling that I want more often. I can always choose another emotion. I always have the ability to choose to feel something different, or to call it something different. Sometimes if I just call an emotion that I'm feeling something different, it doesn't feel so as intense or bad to me. So that's a way of always feeling a little bit better and a little bit better. I define what every emotion means and what every feeling means to me. And I can change my definition whenever and as often as I like. My emotions are subject to change without warning. I don't understand everything that impacts or causes me to feel or think a certain way, or believe a certain way, or have a different emotion trigger to me any more than anyone else. I'm an emotional being, and it shows, whether I want it to or not, or whether I intend it to or not. My feelings and emotions are just as important and valuable as anyone else's, whether they think so or not. So I know where this one comes from. This comes from dealing with my ex, where whenever I would say how I felt, it would be immediately devalued or ignored or put down. And then only I can treat me the way I deserve to be treated. I can only control me, how I treat me. How others treat me, I can't control. I can influence it. I can choose not to participate with those people. But again, it speaks to the everybody's responsible for their own actions and behaviors. I'm responsible for my own actions and behaviors, and I can't control those of anyone else. It's like trying to motivate people. When I was younger, I thought, oh, you can motivate people with all these things that you learn in the business books, but it doesn't work. We are, as human beings, intrinsically motivated. We either are motivated from within or we're not. And we're motivated to things that are important to us. We're not motivated by things that aren't important to us. So that's why I think scientists and managers and leaders believed for a long time you can motivate people with the things that were important to them, but it only goes so far. Money will only motivate people to a certain extent. And after you have all the money you need to do the things you want, when you want, where you want, with whoever you want, it doesn't motivate you anymore. And that's true of anything, of any emotion, right? So those are my lessons learned, some of mine. Share one of yours in the comments below today. Let me know if this was helpful or not, and if you'd like to know more about how to capture, how to save lessons learned. There's all different ways. You have to find the way that works for you, just like everything else. Are you noticing a theme here? It's your responsibility. It's up to you. You define what everything means, and you got to figure it out for yourself. We can get help and learn from other people, but bottom line is we have to choose and select and do the things that work for us. Have an awesome day. If I can help you in any way, ask. Otherwise, I will be with you tomorrow with another emotion-related day for this segment. Have a great day.